All right, we should be live. Hopefully, a little bit to see if anybody shows up here, and we'll get started here. So, if this is your first time watching me, I am Adam Starseed Bey. You can check me out on YouTube. I'm on there, so if you just type in Adam Starseed Bey, you'll find my site. Definitely like the page, share it out. I talk about a lot of different things on YouTube, from spirituality to things that are going on in the world, as well as other different interesting and controversial subjects. So definitely like the page and subscribe and share it out. If you're watching me on facebook.com/realtalkAdamStarseedBey, definitely like the page, share it out. Currently that's the page that you can get a hold of me. So so if you have any questions, concerns, let me know. That's where most of my content will be at. So today we're going to be talking about some interesting things. I was really kind of throwing out ideas on what I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. But before I went live, I ended up watching this guy talking about the soul, and that his claim in his book, that's all that this thing was about, was just him trying to sell his book, was, just like what a lot of atheists and stuff believe in, is that there is no soul, is that we die at the end of the day. There is nothing afterwards. And it was a little controversial, because there's two different elements that this guy was talking about. Is that, in the Bible it states that if you give your life to Christ, right, that's the whole saying that we're used to. If you give your life to Christ, then you're born again, you're set free, your soul is saved, and you're going to be part of the harvest with Christ, right? Your soul will be part of the harvest with Christ. But if you don't give your life to Christ and you just live about your ways, and you don't have any spiritual growth or development, or you're giving your life to Christ, right, then your soul perishes and dies. Your soul perishes and dies. And I was like, yep, that's what I'm going to talk about today. So we're going to see where this goes. There's definitely a lot of research that is involved within this topic, but you got to start somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and read Ezekiel 18 all the way through 18, because this is quite an interesting one, because it's basically entitled, just like I titled this, "The Soul Who Sins Will Die." So we'll read this and then we'll just kind of go from there. So the soul who sins will die. The word of the authority, or I am, came to me. What do you mean? What do you people mean by quoting this proverb about the land of Israel? The fathers eat sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign authority, or the sovereign I am, you will no longer quote. Oops. There goes my phone. There we go. All right. You will no longer quote this proverb in Israel, for every living soul belongs to me, the Father as well. I would say the Father and the Mother as well, as the sons and daughters, both alike belong to me. The soul who sins is the one who will die. Suppose there is a righteous person who does what is just and right. He does not eat at the mountain shrines, or look to the idols of the house of Israel. And basic meaning, I'm going to go ahead and talk as I read this. So basic meaning, if you're not eating above the mountains is the top of the head. The mountains is where you find your magi, your third eye, where you commune in that sacred place, right? You pray, you meditate, you think of a higher place, a higher mentality. That's going to be the mountaintop. This can also be the mountaintop, which is your heart space as well. So you got to think in both elements as well. Or look to the idols of the house of Israel. And again, so many people focus on the delightfulness of what they see, right? They see physical churches, they see idols of perceived Christ and Mary and angels and things like that. They're delightful to the eye, pleasing to the eye. You think you're spiritual, you're righteous because you see these figures in front of you. But at the end of the day, it's all about that personal experience. He does not defile his neighbor's wife or lie with a woman during her period. He does not oppress anyone, but he returns what he took in pledge for a loin. He does not commit robbery. Basically, basic terms is, you don't want to rape or steal what is not yours, right? You can't save your soul at the last minute. You can't claim your rise to fame without doing the work, right? Without justifying what you've done, right? You can't become a millionaire overnight without doing the work, unless you win the lottery, right? But at the end of the day, that's what we got to look at, is that the soul cannot be bought. The soul cannot be purified or anointed without the proper instructions. And that's what we're reading here. That's some pretty brutal stuff right there. Let's see here. He does not commit robbery, but gives his food to the hungry and provides clothing for the naked. He does not lend at usury, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, or take excessive interest. He withholds his hands from doing wrong and judges fairly between man and man. He follows my decrees and faithfully keeps my laws. That man is righteous, he will surely live. Well, that's kind of weird there. Okay. Yep. So basically that just means at the end of the day, reading through that whole passage, is that, if you're not tempted by any delightfulness at all, you're not falling into what I talked about earlier, falling to the church's way, into the religious dogma, the idols and the human tongues, right? You got all these pastors and preachers trying to talk to you, right? Trying to have you follow in their footsteps. That was just what I was listening to with that guy's book. Be like, yeah, I got all this research, man, in this book. This tells you about that people are following Christianity in the wrong way. It's Satan's Christianity, and all of this stuff, right? This human tongue is selling this book, trying to tell you, hey, I got all the answers. You just gotta read my book and I'm gonna help save your soul, right? You got to be aware of that. Again, I always love saying this because it speaks home, right? Christ said, I'm the way, truth, and life. No one goes to the Father except through me, right? The power of the I am, right? Going within yourself, discovering that anointing of Christ within you, discovering the kingdom of heaven within you, and communing and living with God within you, right? Learning about all these elements inside the self. So many people, I'm going to get off track here, but so many people try to persuade you and bribe you to look outside yourself, right? I talked about this in previous videos, is that people feel that God and Christ is so far away from them, and they're reaching their hand out, they're crying, they're wanting God to save them and help them in their lives, but at the end of the day, Christ was always there in you. You just needed to tap in and be anointed with the Christ within you. Be anointed with that light, right? And we're not taught this ever, right? We're hinted. There's things that are hinted. The Bible hints at it a lot, and you have to crack the codes. But it's all within. We gotta stop listening to human tongue, right? That's why I'm here. I don't want you to listen to me in terms of like, oh, Adam knows all this stuff. No, I want you to use these tools to help you research and discover a more personal relationship with your soul, within yourself, learning what meditation is, learning what that light of Christ is, and find out if it's real, find out if it's true, right? The only way you're going to find out is if you do the work and you have that personal experience and encounter at the end of the day. So many people can use their power of their sword, the power of their tongue, and just easily manipulate you out of things, right? I got friends who are atheists, and they tell me that all the time. They're like, no, the soul doesn't exist. Your body only lives and works in the mechanics of the brain, right? But that makes no sense, because the brain, we use a very small portion of the brain. The brain allows us to function and move our arms and hands and things like that, right? But it's just like an engine, right? If you don't have an engine, it ain't going to work. You put an engine in there, it's good. But if you get in a wreck, say your body gets in a wreck, you get brain damage, your body's not going to work properly. But it's the soul that continues on. The soul will remain perfect in its entirety, despite if you have brain damage or not. So we have to look at that in that element, that there's a spark within us. The thing that's communicating with you is not this vessel here, but the soul that dwells within. And when you tap into the soul and you become empathic and just listen to what the heart is expressing and what the soul is expressing itself, it makes you a different person. Your light shines brighter, and there's something to it, right? You always hear all these people have, I know I'm getting off track here, but it makes sense. You hear all these people who really are anointed with the Spirit of Christ, and they begin to speak from their heart, and they share their testimonies, and I've shared my testimony before, and how you can be so negative in life, and you just don't want to live. You don't know how to make friends, or you always have this mindset that nothing goes right for you, right? And you play in that playground endlessly, and you keep telling yourself, man, my life isn't good, I'm not good enough for somebody, things like that. That becomes your real reality, right? You have created that reality for yourself. But if you do a flip side, a lot of people give their lives to the Lord, or to Christ, give their lives to Christ, or have that darkest moment. I had my darkest moment, and in that darkest moment I heard that voice, right? Christ said, I've always been here for you. I've always been here for you. You just had to listen. You just had to surrender. And that was powerful. That was my personal encounter, and that woke me up, and that turned my life around, right? There's a lot of things that I had to still deal with and learn and grow. But in that moment, I really knew that Christ was real, that God was real and watching me and protecting me. And a lot of people go through those darkest moments, and they can either choose to listen and surrender, or they can choose to end it right there. So it's the power of choice and the power of the mindset. Of all things, that's how the Spirit works. Anything that you do, you watch, the Spirit will talk to you in anything, whether it be through TVs or YouTube videos or what you read, and then the Spirit will just show you these little things. So I like wrestling. I like to listen to the drama of it, and just listen to the realistic perception, right? Because wrestlers admit that wrestling is fake and scripted and so on and so forth, right? But it's the character, and it's the athletic abilities of these wrestlers that make it a sport to watch, because it's interesting, it's cool, it's something different, right? Wrestling's not as good as it used to be, but it's still interesting. So I watched this guy called Chris Von Fleet. He does a lot of interviews with wrestlers, and he was interviewing a wrestler named Jimmy Jacobs, and he was talking about his addictions to drugs and him going through rehab. And he said rehab was the best thing that ever happened to him. I'll have to post a link on that, so then he gets credit for that. But he was talking about on how rehab was the best thing that ever happened to him, because it allowed him to sit down and do a self-reflection of his life, right? Because he was into drugs and he was losing a lot of things. So he was able to do a self-reflection, and he said, everybody should go through rehab in their life to do a self-reflection, because a lot of times we get lost in our lives. We have all of these beliefs of what we are, just like I talked about before. A lot of people believe that they're no good and that they'll never get anything better in life. Some people are in the mindset of they're all high and mighty, they're rich, and they're powerful, and there's peasants that are below them and they can just laugh and mock at them, right? You also got people who believe that they're very loving and caring, and that's their whole state of being, because they believe that they are love and they're light, right? They're all different belief structures that we create for ourselves, what we feel our identity is, right? What we feel our identity is. And that's deep. That is really deep, and that's what I encourage people to do, is to do that self-reflection in life. You should always be doing a self-reflection of where you're at in life. How did you get to the state? That's why I was talking about the new moon, full moon, new moon again. Setting your will and intent, looking at your life, reflecting on your life, right? I'm on vacation right now, and I do a lot of self-reflections when I'm on vacation, because that gives me more time to myself, right? Because, you work 40 plus hours a day, or a week, 40 plus hours a day, man, that'd be a nightmare. But 40 plus hours a week, right? That doesn't really give you a lot of time to do a self-reflection, because you come home, then you cook dinner, take care of the kids, all that stuff, right? You got to do all this stuff, it gives you maybe an hour or so. Plus you got to go to the gym if you're at the gym. It doesn't give you a lot of time to do self-reflection. So you just got a little bit of time to meditate or pray and relieve some of that stress that may have built up from work. So when you have vacation, it's really a good time to do a self-reflection. Go out to nature if you need to. Do whatever it takes for you to get yourself balanced and set yourself right to where you need to be at in life, right? Prepare yourself. During August and September, I prepare myself for the winter, right? You gotta prepare yourself for bills that are coming and all that stuff, right? Winter, sometimes they can cut hours during the winter times, and that's when you need the money the most, is during the winter times, because you have to make the electric bill or the gas bill go up in price to keep your house heated, and et cetera, et cetera. So, it's important to do this self-reflection, and it's important to do this as much as you can, right? And it's tough. It really is. When you don't have vacation, I got split days off. I only get 1 day and then go back to work. Work a couple days, 1 day off, and then work 3 days, and then 1 day off, and then back to work again, right? So it doesn't give me a lot of time to do self-reflection, or to just go, I'm off work. No, because I gotta just go up and go back to work again. So we really have to learn how to balance all that out within our lives. I'm continuously learning how to balance things out, right? There's a lot of things in my life personally I still have to balance out. Still have to find time for it. Still have to work on stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to commune back within ourselves. And that's the whole point of this video, is that what are you going to go home to? Or what are you going to go home to? If you're not aware of God or Christ, or you feel that Christ or God is so far away, you don't believe in Christ or God at all, what kind of home are you going to? You're going to go home to your delightful place, right? Your delightful place. Maybe you got a beautiful wife or husband, or maybe your home is a mess and you got a wife or husband that yells and complains to you. That's the only home you go to. But what real home do you have to go home to? And that's within here. That's within here. That's where you have to commune inside yourself. Meditate and pray within you, and discover a whole world within you, right? The power of the imagination is a big thing, but there's something real and true in here. There's a soul in here that has a story to tell, and it's alive and it's breathing. And there's so much more to it, right? There's so much more to it. I can talk about it all I want, but it's that encouragement, and that's what this video is intended for. Is that encouragement that the soul is real, it is alive in you. It's the real you, and this world that we're born into is programs that try to deceive you and sell you counterfeit delightfulness within your life. But at the end of the day, if you're not claiming back what is yours to begin with, your birthright, right? It's talked about in the Bible about the birthright. Your soul is your birthright, and you got to claim it back. You have to claim your soul back. And Christ opened that doorway, right? His life and death is within the Bible. And he's helped you learn on how to claim back your birthright, how to claim back your soul, to go within you and commune again with Christ, to commune again with the ancestors, right? Christ talked about talking with Enoch and Abraham and et cetera, right? That term means talking with the ancestors. Going within you, you tap into your DNA, your genetics, and you have your ancestral heritage within you, right? You discover a lot of things within you. This is why a lot of people get confused about past lives. Is it really past lives, or are you just tapping into your bloodline, right? If your bloodline is ancient, man, you're going to have a huge library, Akashic records of the past, of the perceived past on earth or beyond. You're going to tap into all this stuff. So you have to have that awareness that it's out there, and you got to have that awareness that people have testimonies. This isn't the only testimony, right? My story isn't one of its kind. There's other people out there that speak the same as I do. What's all the more reason makes it not a belief, not a faith, but actual real discovery, right? I self-discovered that this is real. It wasn't a mindset or just a hunch because some human person told me, oh, the soul's real, give your life to Christ and that's it. No, I did the work, meditated, discovered a lot of things within my being. And that's why I encourage you to do the same as well. So let's continue on, or otherwise I'll just keep talking away. All right. Again, suppose he has a violent son who sheds blood or does any of these other things, though the father has done none of them. He eats at the mountain shrines. He defiles his neighbor's wife. He oppresses the poor and needy. He commits robbery. He does not return what he took in pledge. He looks to the idols. He does detestable things. He lends at usury, I'm sure I'm saying that word wrong, and takes excessive interest. Will such a man live? He will not, because he has done all these detestable things. He will surely be put to death, and his blood will be on his own head. But suppose this person has a child who sees all the sins his father commits, and though he sees them, he does not do such things. And this is talking about what I just talked about earlier, is that ancestral heritage, right? That, and this is actually getting to something I'm really curious to keep reading here. But this is what we call ancestral curses, right? Genetic curses. Is that, say, you have a beautiful soul, right? Your father or mother, a great ancestor, grandpa or grandma or whatever, did something beautiful, miraculous, helped a lot of people, very spiritual. They were anointed by the Spirit of Christ, and everything was all good, right? But this person had children, and then their children grew up, right? And then one of the sons ended up doing all of these horrible things, that he committed violent acts, and that he was a robber. He robbed people, and he stole from the poor, and he did all of these horrible things, right? And then it goes on into here saying, that then the child saw his father do all these horrible things, and the child was like, hey, I don't want to do those things. I'm going to do the exact opposite of what my father did, because I seen all the bad things that it did to people, all the sadness and the anger and the bitterness that my father caused all these people. So I want to make sure that I do what is right and help these people and help my ancestors and my children as well, right? As well. So, and it's interesting because I'm watching a show called My Name is Earl, and the main show's thing is karma, right? It's karma. So, and it kind of shows the same element here, is this karma, right? You know, if you do bad things, is there going to be karma on your bloodline as each generation is born, right? So let's continue on here. So, will such a man live? He will not, because he has done all these detestable things. He will surely be put to death, and his blood will be on his own head. But suppose this child, or this son, has a child who sees all the sins his father commits, and though he sees them, he does not do such thing. He does not eat at the mountain shrines, or look to the idols of the house of Israel. He does not defile his neighbor's wife. He does not oppress anyone, or require a pledge for a loin. He does not commit robbery, but gives his food to the hungry, and provides clothing for the naked. He withholds his hands from sin, darkness, on balance, and takes no usury. Again, I think I'm saying that word wrong. Or excessive interest. He keeps my laws, God's laws, the universal laws, and follows my decrees, right? Follows my decrees. And the laws that are spoken about here is not human laws, but it's the laws of the Most High. It's the laws of nature. It's just learning about the laws within you. But again, you don't want to break the law either, right? You know, we're born under laws, whether it's human laws or God's laws. And it's something that, you know, we have to be mature-minded with. There's a lot of things about human laws we don't agree with, but we just have to accept it for what it is. But it will change over time. Everything changes as the seasons change. All right. He will not die for his father's sins. Again, it says on here, the child will not die for his father's sins. He will surely live. But his father will die for his own sin, because he practiced extortion, robbed people, and did what was wrong among his people. And I got a question here too, so I'll get to that here in a second. Yet you ask, why does the son not share the guilt of his father? Why does not the child not share the guilt of his father? Since this child has done what is just and right, and has been careful to keep all my decrees, he will surely live. The soul who is unbalanced, who dwells in darkness, is the one who will die. The child will not share the guilt of the father, nor will the father share the guilt of the child. The righteousness of the righteous, which also translates to fairness or justice, justification of the righteous man, will be credited to him, and the wickedness of the wicked will be charged against him. But if a wicked man turns away from all the sins he has committed, and keeps all my decrees, and does what is just and right, he will surely live. He will not die. None of the offenses he has committed will be remembered against him, because of the righteous things he has done. He will live. Do I take any pleasure in the death of the wicked? Declares the sovereign authority, or God, the I Am. Rather, am I not pleased when they turn from their ways and live. But if a righteous man turns from his righteousness and commits sin, commits darkness, and does the same detestable things the wicked person does, will he live? None of the righteous things he has done will be remembered, because of the unfaithfulness he is guilty of, and because of the sins, the darkness he has committed, he will die. Yet you say, the way of God is not just, or the way of the I Am is not just. Hear, O house of Israel, is my way unjust? Is it not your ways that are unjust? If a righteous man turns from his righteousness and commits sin, he will die for it. Because of the sin he has committed, he will die. But if a wicked man turns away from the wickedness he has committed and does what is just and right, he will save his life. He will save his life. Because he considers all the offenses he has committed and turns away from them, he will surely live, he will not die. Yet the house of Israel says, the way of the authority, the way of God, the way of the I Am is not just. Are my ways unjust, O house of Israel? Is it not your ways that are unjust? Therefore, O house of Israel, I will judge you, each one according to his ways, declares the sovereign authority, or the sovereign God. Repent, or surrender. I love the word surrender, right? Repent is such a harsh word. But surrender all of that out of you. Let's see, where was I here? There we go. Repent. Turn away from all your offenses. Then sin, darkness, will not be your downfall. Rid yourselves of all the offenses you have committed, and get a new heart and a new spirit. Why will you die, O house of Israel? For I take no pleasure in the death of anyone, declares the sovereign authority, God, the I Am. Surrender and live, right? It says repent and live, but it's surrender and live. Surrender and live. And that's some powerful stuff right there. And at the end of the day, what I find quite interesting, I did have a question there, but I think I kind of answered that already. The thing I find interesting about that whole passage in Ezekiel is that it didn't mention anything about giving your life to Christ. Giving your life to Christ. I do find that rather interesting. All it said is that if you do good, I don't totally agree with this, but if you do good, if you're just, you're right, then your soul will live, right? Your soul will live. It will have a story to tell. But if you commit bad things, nobody wants to read a bad book, right? Nobody wants to read about that. In this day and age, people do want to read about that, right? They want to read about the minds of a violent person or a psycho or something like that, right? Curiosity of that mindset or that persona. But that's not a way of living, right? That's taking life away, right? Just look at the animals themselves, right? The animal kingdom is beautiful, right? There's a lot of beauty in there, but we can learn a lot by nature, right? All these animals live amongst each other, but there's some animals that have to fend for themselves, right? They have to take a life to give life. They have to take a life to give life. And we really have to look at that as a whole of what that means, right? I get so many arguments when I tell people, you really don't need to eat meat. You don't need to eat flesh, right? Unless you have that blood type. And that's a whole different thing. But you really don't have to eat an animal. Our teeth are not made to do that. Our digestive system is not made for meat. The nourishment that we get from animal flesh is just secondhand, which is because what do the animals eat? They eat good stuff. They eat fruits, they eat veggies, all that stuff. They got all that vitamins and minerals. And of course it's going to be in their flesh because that's what they ate, and that's what you get, the secondhand nourishment from that. That's just something rather interesting, and that's what we have to look at. That's what we have to look at, is that there is so many choices in life, and there is a good choice and there is a bad choice at the end of the day. There is. It's not just, oh, let me do whatever I want and life is good, right? You hear so many people trying to express themselves and allow their ego or their lifestyle to be their God and their claim to fame. But at the end of the day, how is it helping people? How is it helping people? That's the message I get out of that, is that you are a single soul and you're playing in this part, in this play, and you have an influence on people, right? You have an influence on your children, right? I got my son over here. He's listening to me right now, right? You have an influence on people. You give them that seed of life, that love, that nourishment, of life, encouragement, spreading the good news, which is what I wanted to talk about in the first place earlier today, is spreading the good news, right? That's what we're here for, is to spread the good news that there's life, that there is joy. A life isn't perfect. No, we're going to have trials and tribulations always. It's just part of the game of life. But at the end of the day, it is that choice factor. It is that we can do something good for somebody else. Me talking on these videos is for somebody. It's for somebody. Whoever's watching this, there's something in this video that is meant for you, right? That is meant for you. I'm not here for the spotlight. I'm here because the Spirit is wanting to say something to one of you out there, right? And what a beautiful story that is, right? We all have our own story. We all have our own life, right? I got action figures back here. I enjoy my Ninja Turtles. But it's just, if you can do that extra effort in your life, because life is precious. Life is short. Life is very short. You don't know what is going to be around the corner. You don't know if you wake up tomorrow, your loved one may not be there the next day, right? And that's just something that we have to deal with as it unfolds. We should never worry about it. We shouldn't be fearful about it. If it happens, it happens. And we deal with it when that happens in life. But you got to enjoy life, and you got to bring life to people, right? Spirituality as a whole is that spark that people are looking for, right? People are born into programs, and then they go to school being trained for this, for the business world of enslavement, right? You can make your own business and become your own boss, and it's hard to do that. It can happen. You can do it, right? It seems so far away, it feels that way to me, but we can become our own bosses and create and build a business, right? The businesses that are around us, these big corporations, were built from the ground up. So it's proof that we can build something. We just have to work and put our blood, sweat, and tears into it. But if that's not for you, then we got other ways of helping people. We got other ways of helping people. I gotta buy that thing to keep my phone up. But there's other ways to help people, to bring joy in their lives, right? Like I said, that we have to bring spirituality back in a way that's not religious, in a way to help people learn that there is a God that loves them, there is a Christ that loves them within them, that their soul, they need to reclaim back, and they need to reclaim their birthright back. And I think that's the message at the end of the day here. I could definitely go a lot deeper into this because there's a lot of other things I wanted to talk about with the soul. But at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, is returning back and claiming back our birthright, which is our soul. And you can go into a whole other discussion about, well, the Bible says that we're going to gain back our lands and everything like that. And I'm sure that will happen. We're seeing that happen, right? We're seeing the end of an age. We're seeing the church's structure change. We're seeing religion change. We're seeing politics change, right? We're seeing a lot of the dirty work of politics, right now. So we're just waiting for things to change and evolve and things of that nature, right? We can't control everything. That's been a thing that my soul has been showing me, Christ has been showing me, is that we can't control everything. Look at what you can control now in your life. Look what you can control. Look what you can change, right? Look what you can change. You can't change people. You can't change things that are beyond your control, right? Just take care of what you can take care of, what you are in control of, what you're in charge of, right? And that's how you build and grow, and you just take responsibility for what you can control, right? You can control your life, you can control your emotions. You just have to learn how to do that as well. That's obviously for somebody. That's what the message is being sent, is that we can control what happens to us, right? What happens to our soul, right? Man, there's so many other things you could talk about. But it's just, our soul is us, right? Our vessel, this meat suit, this vehicle, is not us. It's not us, right? We can enjoy life, play video games, have fun with some action figures, right? Go outside in the nature. If you like sports, go out and play sports, go out to the beach, go surfing, go hiking, whatever it is that you love, take that time and enjoy it. Enjoy the moments in your life. But realize too that you have a go home to place as well. The spirit within you has a divine presence that is uncanny among anything else. And that's where that true joy comes from, is within that soul, within that spirit. It's like a built-in video game within you, and there's just a huge story in there as well, right? Again, I got friends who are atheists, and they just feel that they live once and that's it, right? And that's what I wanted to talk about earlier, that they live once and that's it. Once you're dead, you're dead. But the soul does live on, right? There's a soul matrix. We are a piece. We are a spark of something greater, right? I talked about the ethers, talked about the spirit realm. It gets really deep, right? But at the end of the day, we're all life. Our single being, our single personality, right, is just this experience. But what happens when we leave? And I think that's something that I need to talk about in another video. But what happens when our soul leaves? I think that's the ultimate question a lot of people have, is what happens when our soul leaves? Do we die? Do we live? A lot of people question that, but from my personal understanding is that we just become part of the whole. We become part of the whole. This individual expression, this person named Adam, Starseed Bey, this is just a personality of life, right? This soul, this divine soul that is here to help change and shift the ethers in a positive, balanced way. And once my job's done here, I will be merged back into the ethers. And there's so many rivers of the ethers that you go to afterwards, right? And then you just shoot up and you adventure and expand into another being or entity. But that piece of Adam, right, this Adam character, will continue to live because his soul continued on that journey, on that life journey, right? The book of life. The book of life is kept right here in this soul of Adam. And once the soul of Adam leaves, we'll go back into the ethers, and just become one with the matrix, or one with the soul matrix. And that's beautiful, that's deep, and that's a mindset that we have to have, right? So many people are scared and they think, man, once I die, I am this. But you're so much more than just this flesh. It's uncanny. That's just something that I felt that needed to be talked about. That's something that I'll probably talk about a lot more in another video. So yeah. So at the end of the day, I think that's definitely the message that's being across here, is that don't fear, be who you are, but make sure that everything that you do matters and makes a difference. And be aware that you influence those that surround you, right? The children are the ones that we need to look to. The children are the ones that we have the influence on. And that is the generation that is going to grow from our actions. From our actions. That's why maturity is key, and we got to have good family values. We have to bring that back. We can't lose that. Family values is important. Very important. Right? We have these ego-driven adults that act like children that have just thrown family values out the window because of their personal lifestyle, and they feel that their lifestyle is their God, and they have a point to get across. But does that build life? Does that build character? Does that build up your soul? And does that help our generation to come? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We're here to help people grow and mature in love, in life, in light, and that's our responsibility, right? That's our responsibility as an elder or a seer. That's our responsibility as a parent, to take care of our children, to teach them the ways of good family values. Teach them the ways of good, teach them the ways of life. They're going to make their own decisions. They're going to make their own choices, just like it talked about in Ezekiel. You can have an amazing father that did great things, but then their children did horrible things. But then that child had a child, and then that child saw that their parents did horrible things, and that child decided to do good things. So we have a huge influence on our children, and it's the generations that come after us that make that impact. And that's what we're seeing now, right? We're seeing a change, a shift in this reality. We're seeing a shift spiritually, right? A lot of people are looking into spirituality. A lot of people are looking into the soul. A lot of people are turning back to Christ again, right? We have a lot of New Age people that looked into meditation and things of that nature, which is a part of what we're supposed to do with our spiritual practices, but they left Christ out. So people are discovering Christ again. Like I said, I've seen so many people just on Facebook alone giving their lives to Christ because they realized that the love they were seeking was not the love outside them, or the love of, hey, let me just be love and light, it's all good, right? Then we got fairies and dragons, whatever, right? There's something always missing. And then they discover that Christ light, and they're like, that's what I was missing all along. Man, life is good. Life has changed since I've given my life to Christ. And it's not just giving your life to Christ, right? Just not speaking it, but being truly anointed in the Spirit. Once you surrender, you get that anointing of the Spirit. And that's when you claim back your birthright, which is your soul. Your soul is your birthright. And I want to go on another topic, so I need to turn this video off before I start talking another hour. So claim back your birthright, which is your soul. Look into that. Yes, your soul is real, and there's a lot of things that happen after this life. But don't focus on the after. Focus on the now. See what you can do now. Make a difference now. Always, right? I'm always testing myself. There's some things that, I have fear in some things, right? False evidence appearing real, creating falsehood within myself that I have to overcome, right? Just making the phone calls and sending the emails. People are wanting to talk, and at the end of the day, that's what we have to look at, is that people want to communicate with each other. And I think that people are just scared to do so because they're scared that maybe their story is weird or different, right? But at the end of the day, especially if you're one with Christ, there's a lot to share and a lot to offer with each other. And we can share ideas as well and help lighting this world up, right? Because we're all light bearers, and we're supposed to be lighting up the world right now, which is what we're doing now. Man, the light is shining real bright, and in the future it's going to be shining so much more brighter. So yeah, so I keep talking on and on. So I'm going to go ahead and end my video by saying the same thing I said at the beginning. So again, my name is Starseed Bey. If you're watching me on YouTube, definitely like the page and share it out. Just type in Starseed Bey and you'll find my YouTube channel there. Definitely subscribe. If you're watching me on Facebook, you can get a hold of me at facebook.com/realtalkadamstarseedbey. That's the page you can currently get a hold of me, and that's where I'm pretty much putting my content on there now. YouTube is there as well, but Facebook is going to be the one to go to as well until I can get a web page, which will happen in the future sometime. So yeah, so love yourself, keep shining bright, be that light and change that you want to see in the world, because you make a difference. You really do. So yeah, so love yourself, keep shining bright. I'll talk to you later.